Thank you. This is for the camera, so we're going to be holding it, but it's not going to do anything, which is very NBC. We think like things that don't function the way we think. Okay, so just going to read you a little blurb and then try not to read too much. But the MBC embraces purposelessness. Our aim is to energize the space with our activities and suggest new interpretations for existing structures, both in the social, political, and in the environmental, architectural sense. Working as a team, we interact physically with technological devices and everyday objects by using them to perform unconventional, bizarre, and highly non-productive tasks. The work proposes that everyday technologies might be reinterpreted in absurd, playful, and strange ways, and that the nature of productivity and function be re-examined. So we began our collaboration by brainstorming ideas actually for a proposal for in response to a call for submissions for a show at the Silver Lab Gallery at Ohio State University. And the topic was resurfacing, expanding the technological horizon. Yeah. And we were trying to figure out like ways to literally illustrate expanding the horizon, like either physically through using rope or I don't know. It never came to fruition. But at any rate, really what we started to do was we were at the School of Art and Design, and we started to respond to, we were interested in structure and architecture and then also objects. And so here you see these fans. These are a series of stills from the first video that we put together that we did for the Ohio State University show. And do you want to play the mini shorts? So there's a couple of super shorts where in one we're really intrigued by these really narrow doorways that actually are the entranceways to what used to be dark rooms at U of M. They don't have dark rooms anymore, but we were like, why are these doorways? Sorry. Ad infinitum. Oh, no. Escape. You could just watch it for hours, right? And then we found we have these. We wanted to do something with TV monitors, and we got these TV monitors, and we were going to take, and they were on carts. We got them at U of M, but we intended to take them off the carts. But as it turned out, they were chained to the carts. We didn't know that they were locked to the carts. So, but then we realized, well, we kind of like that because now they're the same height as we are, and it became this sort of. They sort of started to get that idea of humanizing technology a little bit. So here's another super short. Sarah chose the music. It's really good, right? Okay, so let's see, where are we? So in terms of medium, we were mainly working with still photography, even though most of what you're seeing here are images taken from the video. But we did also still images and then video. And what else do I have to say about that? So the video 101 Ways to Humanize Technology is a compilation of various movements, objects, spaces, and actions that we explored at the School of Art and Design and at the University of Michigan MFA studios. Particularly discovering non-functional and at times nonsensical uses for what would normally be utilitarian things. Our work in general tends to questions level of authority, control, and standardization, and asks, are we in control of technology, our immediate environment, and institutional systems, or is the reverse true? In general, are we in control of anything? We would definitely embrace absurdity. So we were going to play the 101 Ways to Humanize Technology. And this was about 3 minutes? Yeah, so we're going to play the whole thing for this one. I'm just going to talk a bit about our collaborative style, I guess you could say. When we started, we kind of had a sense that we wanted to do some very physical work. And I have a background in performance, and Sarah has a background in gymnastics. And we found that just like working with objects, we kind of had a natural improvisational sense with each other, and just started to work off of each other really well, or sometimes really well. But and also what we would do is a lot of times videotape things, and then see what we liked, and sort of discussed what we thought was working, but didn't have set, everything wasn't set then when we would go back and then reshoot. There would just sort of be, what we started to do is kind of have guidelines. We say, okay, we want to have, like, come out of the door with the TV, but there was still lots of room for spontaneity and improvisation. So in that sense, a lot of times when we're actually doing the work for videos, it has a performance feeling because there's spontaneity in it. It's not so planned. And I was just going to say that in that one part where we're on that thing and we're like shaking it, if you notice, like when Sarah was sort of in control and it kind of spun around, she just like really made sure it was like really gently bumped the wall, so I wasn't like hurt. But then when I whipped her around, it just like really whipped me to the wall. So I kind of felt bad about that, but just got out of control. Anyway,
Melanie tends to get out of control, and then in a lot of situations, and I tend to kind of lower the.
Except you're the one that came up with like whipping your hat off with the fans.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's in there. It's in there.
Just somewhere.
Oh, and I was going to say we also sort of discovered how we liked playing with the speed of the video, because it's kind of a metaphor for just sort of the, I guess, speed sometimes of technology, or the haphazard nature of technology sometimes. And the sound, we started to enjoy the sound when the video was played at different speeds. Mm-hmm. Okay, take it away.
Okay. So this was, Melanie mentioned the show at Ohio State, and this is what we were making that work for. We also decided we wanted to propose to have a live performance there. And with the concept of the show being about people and technology, we were interested in how technology is so integrated into our lives that sometimes it mediates our reality. And so for this show, we also proposed to have a live performance that would be mediated by technology. So we were interested in an ironic situation that we would be performing live, but that the viewers could only see us through technology. So here's an image of, this is the installation of that video that you saw, and then some photographs. But the additional part was this live performance, and we wanted to find a space in the building where the show was that we could perform live and then have this feed. A live feed, meaning we had a camera inside of the room, and then what we were doing was fed to a monitor outside of the room. What happened was we emailed the curator of the show, and he sent us an image of this room. And when we saw the picture, we were like, we have to do it in there. It's perfect for us, because we're interested in rigid structures of institutional spaces. So, straight lines, and then how when we place our bodies in the spaces, we have kind of an organic form, and that the way that the shapes of our bodies and our movements counteract with these kind of rigid structures of spaces like this classroom. So when we saw this, all the lines and rectangular shapes were perfect. So we said, yep, that's where we want to do it. So what we did was we placed a video camera inside that room that you just saw. So it's this room. And then right outside these doors to the classroom, we placed the monitor. So we were performing live for 2 hours, and they knew that we were in there because they could hear us, but yet the only way they could see us was through this monitor outside the door. And like Melanie mentioned, to prepare for this performance, we have this process that incorporates both spontaneity and a sense of order. And so we began with this site in mind, and then we went to the room, and we spent, I don't know, countless hours, probably like 5 to 10 hours in it, as we do in a lot of the ones that we've done. And we just kind of interact with one another and the objects in the space and perform these spontaneous movements and move things around. And the whole time we're videotaping this, and then we watch the footage afterwards, decide what we think is working, and then give ourselves guidelines. Like, for example, some of the guidelines might be something like use the stick with your head down, or when you're putting your chair on a foot, put your hand on another chair, or something like that. They might be really specific like that, or they might be like when one person cross at a faster speed, or something like that. But then within those guidelines, we still are improvising. So we have those guidelines in our mind, but then what happens in the space is spontaneous. So for this one, we did this for 2 hours, and then people could watch, through the monitor. So we were interested in this, the idea that it's about mediated reality through today's digital technologies. And again, as Melanie mentioned, we sped up the audio and video for the final video. When we used the video for showing in other places, we sped up the audio and video to mimic digital machines on overload or going haywire. So we're going to show a little bit from that video. And this one's longer, so we might just have to do the beginning and then cut to the end.
Oh yeah, the end. Okay. You want to go ahead? We're going to speed it up a little bit to the end. So this kept happening when your chairs gradually started to be removed. And we're starting to get a sense of that we're kind of like worker bees. And so you see those moments like when we were leaning back and forth with each other. I think we were actually kind of thinking of that's like kind of like break time. Playtime or something, and also kind of working with each other. And just anecdotally, we had 2 tapes, and I think by accident we put one on long play, which means it'll go for 90 minutes instead of 60. We had 2 60-minute tapes. We realized we had about 10 minutes left on the tape, and we thought, well, instead of stopping it and changing the tape, let's just finish this tape. And Sarah said, why don't we just start, we were off camera, start putting the chairs back. And then it got really fun.
So that was the culmination of the performance was this semi-unplanned sculptural chaotic chair extravaganza. So, So then here are just some stills from the video. And then the culmination. So we think, we talked a little bit about this, but we think that this work questions like levels of authority and control, and asks questions like, are we in control of technology, our immediate environment, and institutional systems, or is the reverse true? In this work, we're both passive and active, so it suggests ideas about planned and spontaneous activity, private versus public space, so we have this mediated reality. Even surveillance and also voyeurism are also kind of part of this project. So,
Okay. That's all right, I've been holding it. So this is Museum of Contemporary Art, Detroit. This is just an exterior view. It's actually a 20,000 square foot space, and it used to be an auto dealership, kind of like the UICA was an auto dealership. And we proposed doing an MBC-like performance there. We didn't specify what it was going to be, but we had said, well, they kind of wanted us to do it in one of these main gallery spaces. And you see they're like vast. And we were walking around. At one point, I thought we should do it up in these rafters. But like having no insurance and all that, we decided not to do that. And the assistant, I'm not sure what his title is, to the director maybe of the museum, wanted us to do it in this one main space where they have like a little coffee shop area. And we said okay, but then as we were walking around, we realized that it's almost like it didn't have enough for us to do. Like we kind of need to be busy. And there were a few things we could push around, but what happened was we saw this little loft area up there. Yeah, thank you. And we climbed up there, and it's just kind of jammed with, they don't really have any extra rooms for storage, so they just have a bunch of stuff like sort of jammed up there. Like, this is perfect for us. So we said, we really want to do the performance up in that tiny little loft area. And the guy wasn't really happy about that. How are people going to see you? Da, 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 da. And we had to argue our way in. And we were able to convince him. What we said was, what if we do another live feed performance? And this time it'll be projected large onto one of the walls in the gallery. So that's what we ended up doing. We had the 200-foot cables or something across to where the projector was. And then the cool thing was the audio person there turned on the sound to the PA. So all the little shuffling and dropping and all those kind of things were kind of broadcast. So that was great. Do we have anything else to say about that? We were just thinking, again about the idea of the museum and the sort of regulations that you have to deal with in the museum. And in a sense, we were kind of subverting the idea of putting something on view at a museum, in that you could hardly see us up there, but you could see us on the projection. There were a few hazards. One was if we walked over into like that white area, if we stepped on that, we would fall down into the bathrooms. So there were certain things that the site itself gave as guidelines, like don't step there, you'll fall through. There were also these pipes that they warned us like many times that if we even bumped, the entire sprinkler system would go on for the whole museum, and they had a show installed, and it was right there, yeah. And it has like this little it's almost like on a motion, but I almost want to say like on a level, the water in a level, and you just sort of see it move a little bit, and like, oh my God. And we did bump it. The sprinkler system didn't go on, but it was really nerve-wracking for a moment. So we just, a lot of the things that are up here are the things that have to do with running a museum, like, packing tape and boxes and like napkins and cups for receptions, and just lots of odds and ends, ladders. And we just kind of organized and reorganized and made sculptures, I guess you could say, and we're very busy. So we'll just show, this one's about 9 or 10 minutes, so we'll probably just show a little bit of this one as well. Oh, and it was about 90 degrees that day, and MoCat doesn't have air conditioning. So it's about 98 degrees up in the loft, yeah.
Oh, and the camera went out. It overheated. The camera overheated. As did we. I remember thinking during that moment, I feel like I'm in a grave.
I'm in a grave.
And sometimes these kind of moments where her hand went up at the same time I went up, they're unplanned, but they're really great. We get really excited about them.
Oh yeah, Sarah got really attached to those cups.
I couldn't put the cups down.
Okay.
Okay. So the next project that we did was for the Contemporary Art Institute of Detroit. It's called the Actual Size Biennial. And the call for work is to make work that's 8.5 inches by 11 inches. And so we decided we just did just that. The standard copy paper is exactly that size, which is why I think they were inspired by just regular white paper. And since we tend to often think very literally, we decided, well, let's just use white paper. And at the same time, we were also very interested in, we wanted to have an entire room full of hundreds of printers just printing at once. And then just the madness of that. We had this vision in our mind of that. So we kind of combined those two interests. And we got as many printers as we could to print at one time, and we barricaded ourselves in this kind of cubicle-like shape. Not only are we barricading ourselves inside of the technology, but it's also like a cubicle, so if anyone's ever worked in an office, it's what it feels like. And we have the clock in the background that's ticking away as we go. And what happens is, again, like our other videos, we start out very orderly, and then madness ensues. And let's see, here's some stills from the video, and then we'll show this video. This is when the madness ensues. Okay.
It's about 3 minutes, so we'll show the whole thing.
So for this one, what we ended up doing for the show was we installed it in a stack of paper because it could be any depth. And so we built a structure to hold the paper, and then we put a little DVD player at the top of the stack. So, yeah. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. Then, am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we got asked to be in the Performance Studies International Conference last year. It was at New York University, and the sort of panel we were supposed to be on was to discuss the concept of thinking inside the box. So literally we thought, okay, well we've done boxes, but we'll do it again and make this document on the right that we could give out to people. And if you see, there's these tiny little scissors, and so it actually, if you follow the guidelines of the document, it'll make a box. And so we're on, and with images on all sides. So at the actual conference, we decided to do a real live performance with the projected video that you just saw projected behind us. And so we were staying in Brooklyn, and the day of the conference, we went over to Manhattan with Sarah's rolling suitcase that was empty, and there was a Staples store right by New York University. So we went there, and we bought a case of paper, and we filled up the suitcase with the paper. And then we had like a couple hours to kill, so it turned out we were walking around Manhattan rolling this suitcase that if someone asked to see what was inside, it was just a bunch of blank 8.5 by 11 paper.
Wandering around.
Yeah. So anyway, what happened when we got into the New York University, they had us we were scheduled to be in one room, and then that was X'd out, and then so I said, do you know where the Thinking Inside the Box panel is supposed to be? And she said, I think it's going to be in this room. And we looked at the room. We realized for other people that were going to be doing things in this panel, it was going to maybe be too small. So we said, well, we're not sure if that's actually going to work for everyone. So she said, well, you could maybe do it in this second room. And so we went over and looked at that one, and then we compared it. We went back to the first one, and then she said, well, let's look at that other room again. And then by that point, the people that had sort of usurped us canceled, and so then we were back in that room, and we just realized the whole shuffling was very NBC, and it kind of helped us to understand ourselves.
We came to terms with it.
Yeah.
This was going to be how it was. And all the while we were rolling around the paper.
Yeah.
From room to room.
So thank God for the rollers. We had to work with what the room was that we finally got, and people were set up in rows. So we just walked out into those at some point and started passing paper. Hopefully people, and they did, take the cue of you take one and pass the rest on. But people were just passing paper up and down the rows, but it was all blank. So there was just a lot of interactive handing off and shuffling of papers, which was really satisfying, I thought. And then some of it did start to fly around.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it for that. Yeah.
It became madness again, of course. After that, we started, this was kind of I guess it's different than some of the other ones, but we were inspired by this space in the basement of Melanie's apartment complex. And we were interested in this kind of rectilinear symmetry and the sense of orderliness, and how, again, when we come in, the space, it changes. We kind of activate the space. And so we constructed these photographs in which we perform with these, the only two things that were in the space, which were these buckets. And we think that these are it started to help us to think about these as a living sculpture almost, we're almost like a performative installation, and our bodies become sculpture-like as we mold them and contort them with the objects and the space. And we started to think of the images almost as sort of like geometric paintings or graphic images, and with the white, not entirely white, but sort of white space, it was almost like brushes of color on a white canvas. And so thinking of them as kind of still images, we were inspired to make a collage or a composite image where the cues of the lines in the imagery draw you in and out of the space. So you move in one room and then you come out and you move in the next one. And this project was the one that kind of inspired our project that we did here at Kendall. So,
which was agonizing. Okay. We went through a lot of iterations of what ended up being the piece here. I'm supposed to talk about that? Yeah. So what we thought that, no, you can keep, I think you can keep playing it. We thought about working with pedestals because we were thinking about a gallery space and what is used more for showing work in galleries than the pedestal. And we also thought about working almost in a cubist sense, where if we compiled the videos and put them all into one video, it starts to have that kind of a cubist effect. But then we wanted to take it to another level with the actual installation. So at one point we thought maybe we'll cut holes in the pedestals and have DVD players inside looking out. We sort of tried that, just didn't hit the right note. What else were we going to do? Project it on the wall. At any rate, we finally came upon the idea that we'd like to project onto the pedestals. And even until we got here, we thought we were still going to project on the wall and onto the pedestals. And luckily, Joseph had extra pedestals. We brought a few in Sarah's rolling suitcase. No, I'm kidding. And just kept piling them. And we're pretty happy with it, this iteration. But I think we might go further with it. Like maybe be kind of cool. I mean, I have this vision of it, but it might not turn out of like an island of pedestals with projectors all around coming at it and all.
We want lots of projectors.
Yeah. They don't really make very much noise, though. But so here's another example where the sped up sound was appealing to us. So you can hear a little bit of that. Do you want to play some more of it?
Yeah. So kind of in this one, we were interested in how we have used a lot of layers. Like we're performing. It's sort of like sculpture. I like to think of them as almost like moving paintings, even, or and then we're installing, and then also video. So we're kind of interested in all of those different layers and how they interact.
Isn't it weird? It's like a roulette wheel underwater or something.
And it's actually just the videos themselves when they're composited and sped up. So it's actually the sound of us moving around that's just sped up for it.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Right.
Well, it sort of comes from that kind of idea of the worker and like standardized colors. I sort of think of like those safety colors, like safety red and safety yellow, orange.
Yeah, we think of them as uniforms. They're interesting because they're kind of about conformity, but they're also about standing out because we're different from the space. So we're conforming in a certain sense by wearing uniforms, but we're standing out by being separate from the spaces, which are usually kind of monochrome and often either like gray or white, and then we stand out from those spaces. The other thing about standardization is really interesting because they're colors that are, like some colors are more easy to manufacture than others, and so these are colors that are pretty common. So they've manufacturers have perfected, I guess. That's why these are the ones that you can just buy regular white or regular T-shirts of just red, blue, green, that kind of thing. I don't know. Is that answer the question? But yeah, like I think worker uniforms,
Beanies.
Yeah. So that was actually was it.
Maybe a couple stills of the projected. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, right. So then
Huh. Give it a second.
There. So here's the installation. It was interesting in this process. We had one projector, and we knew we wanted to try to get it to line up on one pedestal. But this is just an example of how spontaneous things happen in our process. We were trying it in a gallery space, and oftentimes the projector would slip a little bit, and so then it hit the corners of the gallery, and so then we realized we loved it on corners, and that's why, because then the lines, or the lines that are created as the light hits the pedestals in the video, create these sense of shadow, and so then we were interested in how the light of the projector wrapped around corners, and that's kind of when we started to experiment with more than one pedestal and to get them to, I guess, wrap around the shapes of the pedestals.
With excellent help from Sarah's crew here.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Comments? A lot of, I guess you could say, performative photography. So a lot of things using my body in spaces, taking photographs of that, and then I like to go back and forth from 2D to 3D. So I might work with my body in like an architectural space, but then I have flat images, but then take those flat images and maybe make that into a sculptural piece, or collage a bunch of images together and then do some folding and sometimes video as well. Yeah.
I guess the most recent thing I did was I took a white T-shirt and I guess I conformed my body to different shapes so that the forms are kind of androgynous. You see my skin and you see like my hair maybe coming through one of the holes, or like a head hole or like the bottom, but the forms are a mixture between penis and vagina, and they're photographed and there's like a series of their photographs. But again, I use this process where I videotape myself moving with it was just one single white T-shirt, and I watch the video and I take I look and see which stills, what exact moment am I creating a sense of androgyny, and then I decide that's what I'm going to make my photograph from, and so then I'll shoot the still image after that. Yeah, so that's one thing. Yeah. Do you have to go?
What we're going to have to do is take the Q&A session down to the basement. If Jamie, if you don't mind. Your class is in there right now.
Yeah.
Just for a few minutes.
Sure.
Jamie's class.
Sure.
Down in B2. Also, if you're interested in having a studio visit with the cooperative, we have spaces available between about 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, kind of intermittently, so you can come see me if you're interested, or to just have a casual conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.